So we're going to talk now about the practical elements, the products, recommendations that I have, and just a few key areas. The first one will be some software and configuration. We'll also talk about phones, laptops, and a little bit about the internet. So that will help you, hopefully, with what I should do now that I've decided I'm going to have phones in my house, even if it's just your phones. So a reminder, just very quickly, a biblical foundation for parenting is important. Otherwise, you're in trouble. If you don't have practical principles for managing technology, you're going to be in trouble. And we're going to begin now with what are some recommendations that I have. So, first of all, the internet, and I'm showing you this because I don't want to make the assumption that you all understand what's going on. You have a computer, you have phones, you connect through your router. Most of us do so through Wi-Fi. You go from the router out through what's called an ISP or an internet service provider, and then you get to the internet, which is really a bunch of computers that are connected together. Now, that's how you do it when you're at home. However, when you're out, your cell phone is using cell towers through the cell phone company to get to the internet. So if you've bought your child a phone, they can get online through Wi-Fi or through cell data. So if home is protected with some sort of block software on the router, you're okay until they hop off the network and they go onto the cell side, which is why both router and device protection is essential. Otherwise, you're in trouble. Does everybody understand how that works? So we're going to first talk about some current technology stuff. Tech changes fast. And an example of that is some software that I just discovered recently. They took features away, and they can do that at the drop of a hat. So you need to stay aware, and if you don't, you'll be in trouble. So a device needs access to the internet, or it doesn't do you a whole lot of good, and that can be found in a lot of ways. And one of the dangers that you need to be aware of, and again, if you have not thought about this, you need to. If you have a motivated child and they say, fine, you're not going to give me a phone, my friend will. That happens. And if that friend has the finances, the resources, the capacity, now all of a sudden your child has a phone that not only do you not know about, but you don't know what they're getting onto on that phone and who they're talking to. You have nothing. So there are ways that when we do Q&A, we can talk about how to track that, what to look for, how to handle that. So when we talk about phones and technology, here's what I need you to know. The people who build all of this stuff, they don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about your kids. They say they do, but their actions tell another story. And that is evident across the spectrum. They're in it to make money, and that's why they're here. So more consumption by you means more profit for them. And if it means you sit down and you binge something on TV for 4 hours, they make money, you lose sleep, they don't care. They're fat and happy. So let's talk about the options. Some of you have said to me, even during our break, we're going to get a dumb phone. This is the way we're going to do this. Now, here's some challenges with a dumb phone. There's no accountability. There's nothing that's tracking what they do. Now, if you're tracking it through your cell provider, you can see who texted whom, but you don't know what the content of the message is. You can see who called whom, who received a call. And there's still concerns. You can have unknown calls. You can have unknown texts. You can have unknown people calling you. And you don't have any way to track them physically, GPS-wise, which is what some people want to be able to do. And it's not usually any cheaper than some of the other options. I got one story for you about dumb phones. Many years ago, one of my girls, we had a dumb phone, and there was a problem with her telephone number. We changed the number, and very soon after, she started getting these weird voicemails and a few text messages. She handed me her phone and said, this guy left some strange message. I listened to it, and here's what the message was in summary. This man thought he was calling a former girlfriend, and he was looking to hook up with her and talked that way. I called him back and said, you've made a serious mistake. You've reached the phone of a minor. He made more mistakes by saying, well, how do I know she's not interested? I said, I'm now reporting your phone number to the police, and if you ever call this number again, I'll report it every single time you do. I hung up, I called 911. A sheriff's deputy immediately came to my house, listened to said message, stood horrified. And this was a big, tall dude. I've never heard anything like this before. We will take care of this for you, sir. That man never called back that number again. Dumb phone, still a problem. Next option, an iPhone, but with no cellular connection. So now you can't hop off onto cell phone. But if you're like me, you've had iPhones around for a while, you get rid of the old one, maybe you've sold it, maybe you decide to keep it. If you don't have a SIM card in it, and I recommend you don't, you can still use the Wi-Fi, and Apple parental controls are pretty good. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. And you can lock it down with some help so tight that they're not going to get anywhere. And then if they're on Wi-Fi, you'll see where they are relatively quickly. And you can do things like turn on Facebook Messenger for kids, which is what we did for a long time with our kids. You can limit who they can talk to. It's very simple. They only can connect with friends. It all has to pass through you, and it works. I do not recommend you allow iMessage, which is something that they have, because there's no way to see any of it. It's all data-driven. It's not text-driven, and they can delete and remove and talk about, and it's just bad. You should evaluate other things. There's no monthly cost, and it may be a good intermediate step. It's a good place to play if you're like, well, they're 12, they don't need a phone, but it'd be nice for them to be able to have a few games. It'd be nice for them to talk to their cousins. Okay, that's an option. You still don't have to pay for filtering software with this. You can lock it down pretty tight, and I'm relatively confident that I can get you there. I'm not going to say it'll be perfect. Next, you begin spending money in this category. Gab, I know a couple of you in the room have some of these devices. The Gab watch costs you money to purchase, and then you spend $15 a month plus tax. Now, here's one thing about it that's really weird to me. You can't call 911. You can limit the number of calls they make to a certain number of people. One of them is an emergency contact, usually the mom. Although if the dad picks up phones better, then maybe you should make it be dad. But they can't call 911, which is strange. The Gab phone, on the other hand, can, and they don't tell you this, but it uses the Verizon network, which is pretty vast. Costs a little bit, well, the same for the phone. A Plus gets you a couple more features. This is comparable to a basic phone or a smartphone costs on your regular cell phone provider. You just pay Gab for it. When you add Plus, there's some other tools that they get you. Text messages can be sent back and forth. They can be deleted, but you can see them. You can go back into the portal and pull them back up and recover them. You also have the ability either to say only my numbers are allowed, or for I think $1 a month, they'll let you block all of the people that are not appropriate, so they won't get political calls and robocalls and all of that. Then you have some phones that have features or don't have features. Light phone is an e-ink phone. If you don't know what e-ink is, like think an Amazon Kindle. Very basic. I wouldn't recommend it because there's no management, and about all it does is the same thing as a dumb phone. Wise Phone, on the other hand, has a few more features, and it allows some basic management. So you can do GPS tracking. You can have some other stuff. It's GSM-based, which means it's only going to work on AT&T, T-Mobile, and not on the Verizon side of things. And it keeps texts indefinitely in the cloud. You can turn off and on camera and other tools that they have. It's very basic. Gab is going to probably have more features than it does. You can get an iPhone. Parental controls are better than anything else. They're not perfect. You must be diligent, and if you're not, you will find yourself in trouble. There's a lot of potential problems, and I would recommend if you have an iPhone, you add on top of it filtering software. I don't talk about Android because I don't know about it. What I do know about Android is it's far more open than an iPhone, so the attack points are much greater, and there are many other ways to get around an Android than an iPhone if you have just a little bit of tech savvy. So iPhone, probably pretty good if you add software to it. We're going to take a break from phones for just a second, and I want to talk about technology. There's something called a VPN. VPNs allow you to make a connection to another computer, and they have a few purposes. One is it allows you to connect to the internet safely. So if you're at a coffee shop, you want to do work, you want to do banking, you don't want anybody to be able to hack you, you connect using VPN software to do that. It has a valid purpose. We have friends who live in other countries that the only way they can get out of the country for certain purposes is by using a VPN. It's a valid, good tool. It can also be used for inappropriate purposes, kind of like my hammer over here. And this is where the challenge comes in. But let's finish explaining the good that comes from this. So you make a connection to the server lets you surf as though you're somewhere else, and it doesn't let people track you. And so kind of help you with understanding that. Your ISP, you can't see where you're going, so they can't track you. Hackers can't see it, and government agencies can't see it. That's good. If you are using a VPN, it means that all the way through to whatever the VPN server is, you have better privacy because it pretends like you're somewhere else. If you've ever used one, you can tell it, I'm in Chicago, I'm in Dallas, I'm in Indiana, I'm in New York, I'm in San Diego. Now, here's the problem. If your child figures out what a VPN is and they put one on their phone, and some of you are like, my kid would never do that. Okay, call me in 10 years. They can bypass whatever protection you put on their phone or at your house. So at my house, VPNs don't work through my router. It's just the way it is. So you want to use VPN, you can't be on my network. It's not allowed. And that's a thing you can do. However, the flip side to this is many software filtering tools utilize a VPN because what they do is they connect through to their server, which has filtering on it and tracking on it, and that lets you have your child be on the internet, but everything they do goes through this little box. So wherever they go, whatever search term they type in, you see all of it. They can get out there, but you know where they're going if the software is behaving properly. So I want you to understand that because there's pros and cons to what VPN software does and how it works. And if you don't understand that, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble real fast. And some VPN software you can install on an iPhone can be disabled, which means now they have full access to do whatever they want, even though you thought you had filtering software on your device. Gets you in trouble fast. So we're going to talk recommendations for filtering software, and these will work on phone and or computer. Most of them, if you buy it for one, it will work on the other. And I just have a nice little chart here for you. Apple Screen Time comes included with all the hardware. You can filter and block. You cannot monitor. They will provide support. Bark Jr. is like a light version of Bark, and if you don't know what Bark is, it's one of the better products out there. So $4.99 a month gets you kind of low level, but it doesn't monitor text, email, etc. Mostly because I think they're looking at small children who you did not expect that they would be doing that. Bark is much better. It's not perfect, but it's better. And some of the features for both this and Custodio require a desktop, like backing up the phone and doing some data analytics. $100 a month gets you unlimited devices, filter and blocking, tracking of texting. Now it's reactive, not proactive. So that means it's going to do analysis and text you a message or notification later and say, hey, this type of term, this type of language was used, and you may not find out about it for 12 to 24 hours, but you will find out about it. Support's unlimited. MobiSip is one of the software tools we use here for filtering on smartphones, and $96 gets you 20 devices. And it does some similar things. It does not do email, text, but most of the people that are utilizing it are adults, so we're not worried about kids sending stuff that they shouldn't. I don't know why that C- is on there. Or that F, that's weird. Custodio, similar to the other two. I don't know a lot about it, but I know it's similar to MobiSip. Streaming devices, the part of the conversation I've been waiting to have a fun time with you about. So, Amazon Fire Stick, Apple TV, Roku, and Comcast. You'll notice Comcast and Roku, I give an F. I actually purchased a Roku, set it up, because it said online they had parental controls. And remember, I warned you, software changes. I'm looking for the parental controls setting. It's settings, parental controls. I begin thinking, I've lost my mind. I can't read. I can't see what's happening right now. And then I typed in some more stuff online and found out in 2023, they removed the parental controls. So now you want access, do wherever you want. And there's nothing you can do about it. So I brought it back. Here you go. I don't want that. I also got an Apple TV. It's not amazing. I know some of you said you have Apple TVs. Here's my dilemma. You turn it on, and there's a whole lot of content available, and not all of it is appropriate. And if you don't believe me, here's the fun step for you to try when you get home. Are you ready? Go to the little search icon and pick any number of words that you don't want me to say in mixed company and see what shows up. And if you want to know what they are, come see me after. I'll give you 3. Fire Stick. This is what we've had for a while. I was frustrated because it had a little bit of a hole. I found out that it's far better than any of the rest of them. In order to get to any app, you have to put in the PIN. Once you're in some of those to watch something, you have to put in the PIN again if it's certain levels. You can turn off most of the autoplay features, most of the live features, and that's a danger. I actually had to call Amazon not too long ago, and I said, hey, there's been content showing up on my screen. Oh, yeah, that's part of our live TV feature. I don't want that. Well, that's Freevee. Freevee is who does that. You're going to have to talk to Freevee. So I'm sitting there with my laptop in my lap, and I'm on the phone, and I typed in, who owns Freevee? Oh, Amazon owns Freevee. Hey, you're telling me I need to call back and talk to someone else? Can you not just help me with this? Oh, yes, sir, I'm so sorry. And I figured out a workaround, but there's still the ability when you're on the home screen before you put any codes in to do searches, which means we're back to you can find the catalog, you just can't watch the show, and that's a problem, and I don't love it. But it's better than the rest of them. So in my house, the remotes go in a locked space at night. You can't watch stuff. And I'm like, why? Because I want to protect my kids. So not amazing, but better than anybody else. And they're not expensive. So if you say, man, I have a Roku, I'm not sure. I don't get any money if you buy a Fire Stick, and they're not expensive. All right. There's a couple of other things that we want to talk about very briefly. Bark makes a phone that they provide everything, hardware, software, and I've tested it. It's okay, but you may want to utilize that and lock down everything because it's pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So here's what you need to know when it comes to all of this. Technology changes fast. If you don't have physical access and control, you don't have anything. And there are far too many ways to get around it. And I just want to tell you something. I referred to this in a previous session. Your interaction with your kids should be spirit-led. If you're ever standing or sitting with your kids and they start acting weird, get nosy fast. Give me your phone. And then start hunting, because something is there, I guarantee you. Do not let it pass. Don't go, oh, I'm too busy. I don't want to deal with that. You're going to deal with it now or later. You may as well get it and find out. And this is what I'm going to leave you with. This is the instruction, chastisement. If they're doing things that you've told them not to, there needs to be consequences. One of my kids, this is fun. Years ago, Twitter was new, and this child got themselves, I'm going to try to protect them, got themselves an extra Twitter account. And one day, after this Twitter account had been in existence for about a month and had, I think, 5,000 tweets on it, one of my friends said, hey, did you know that this exists? I said, what? There had been clear, explicit instruction. You do not create social media stuff without parents having full knowledge and awareness. So we can see, so we can protect you from yourself. That combined with something else made me go, I have your phone for 2 months. And I remember my wife looking at me going, that just seems harsh. I said, it is. But when we sat down and said, you're going to be allowed to have these things, that was what we agreed on. You violate it, you pay the price. Now here's the fun thing. I found out years later that that child managed to find a way to get to some of that stuff on the desktop that was in the room. It had no access, but like pinholes with filtering. I was like, huh, so you little stinker. But here's the thing. We were watching, we were tracking, we were aware, we were always having conversations. And if you're not doing that, don't be surprised when you wake up one day and some crazy statement comes out of your child's mouth. Whoa, where did that come from? Love them well, guide them well, and they will turn out well. Thank you all.